shuddering in his small room in Aleppo, Syria, sitting alone in the dark, playing in his mind a game known as Guess the Weapon by its sound. His body was shaking from cold, jumping with every falling bomb. Suddenly, something unusual happened. He tried to open his eyes, but the light was too bright. He screamed, "I have power! I have power!" He rang to ring his doorbell. It worked. He wasn't dreaming. After 2 months, Wael had electricity again. My friend Wael went back to Aleppo to continue his studies in environmental engineering. He had no choice but to return because the University of Aleppo was the only university offering that program. He told me that living in Aleppo was a suicide mission. He said, "We forget the smell of barbecue, and water became a luxury. Last month, a bomb fell in front of my building. 3 of my neighbors were killed. After half an hour, everything went back to normal, and I was walking the street to go to my university. I have to graduate." I think of Wael and remember my friends. I miss them every day. I lost contact with some of them. They scatter across the globe trying to forget the horror our country is facing. I recall our memories and think to myself, will we meet again? Where? My family lives in a safe city in Syria. I wonder if they have everything they need or they're just pretending. What if the situation kept getting worse? Are they going to be able to leave the country to a safe place? Am I going to die without seeing my sister? Without hugging my nieces? I think of my nieces knowing that they are fortunate to live in the safest city in Syria. But millions of other Syrian children don't have this privilege. The horror they're facing is unimaginable. Their biggest dream is to have a safe place with food and toys. Request so simple that we don't think about it here in our distant lives. It's been a long time since I saw a Syrian child smiling. Their innocence is being taken away. They don't talk about cartoons anymore. They talk politics. They don't go to schools in the morning, but rather to work. It doesn't matter if it's winter or summer, cold or hot. We have to work, otherwise we will have nothing for dinner. This is what a Syrian child who cleans shoes in Turkey said. They don't play with toys, but rather real weapons. Some of them don't know what chocolate or meat is. Some eat grass, simply because they have nothing else to eat. A 9-year-old Rena said, "My sister told me that before war, children were able to play in parks. She told me a lot of stories about a place called amusement park, where children are able to play games outdoors. I wish I can do that too." We grow up and forget those little details until a child like Rena comes to remind us of them. Thousands of Syrian children walk with their parents hundreds of miles in order to reach a safe place. They cross the sea hoping to reach a better home. Some succeed, but many others end up at the bottom of the sea or on social media. If only they were able to make it to social media before they went to their deepest sleep, or I guess their deepest relief. According to Save the Children, 7.5 million Syrian children have grown up knowing nothing but war. 5 million of them need emergency help, and over 2 million have sought refuge in the neighboring countries. More than 26,000 Syrian children have arrived in Europe last year without any family connections. And according to EU police intelligence, more than 10,000 children have disappeared after arriving in Europe over the past 2 years. Many are feared to have fallen into the hands of smugglers and trafficking gangs. I'm lucky to be standing here sharing their stories. But if only I could help, if only I know all their dreams or names, Enter the images of suffering that cover my screen. Hold that little baby who was pushed by waves and tell him, I'm sorry, my baby. I'm sorry because I couldn't do anything to save you. I'm sorry in the name of humanity. I'm sorry that you had to live in this world. Since I was a child, I believed I can change the world. Create a better one where everyone loves and helps each other. When I was a little girl, I used to be very shy. I used to hand flowers to people instead of saying hi. I had this crazy idea that flowers have some kind of magic in them and that they can make anyone a very nice person if they smell them. I firmly believed in the simple strength of kindness. As I became an adult, I went to law school hoping that I can defend all those vulnerable or experienced suffering. I joined the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, thinking that I alone can end the suffering. But let's be honest, I had to grow up. I knew after a while that suffering is endless, and the only way for me to stop it is by being some kind of goddess. Reality check in, I'm sure I'm not. I lost hope in humanity. I felt that no words can define my feelings. I simply felt desperate. Until one night when I was responding to a home fire with the American Red Cross, I was speaking to that 10-year-old boy from Detroit, and suddenly I saw the same look that a Syrian child in camp has in the eyes of that little boy. That kid lost his house, bed, and toys, just like the Syrian child. Later, as I found myself reflecting on this experience and many others like it, I found that they all culminated to a very simple conclusion. I don't need to end the suffering everywhere in the world. I can simply minimize it. I don't have to carry the world on my shoulders. All I need to do is to make small improvement in my own corner of the world. Likewise, I recognize that suffering is universal, and we can't always travel thousands of miles in order to help someone. But what we can do is open our eyes to the reality that suffering exists around us. Because in order to change an ugly reality, we first need to acknowledge its existence. I think about that idea that a single moment can shape the life of a person. The moment of your birth can tell your future. It can define your nationality, your religion, your culture, what language you speak, or even if you might become a president. Have you ever imagined that it was just a coincidence that you were born in a stable country? How would you feel if you were born in a country like Syria, Afghanistan, or Iraq? Counting your days simply because at any moment you might be walking the street and a bomb might fall on your head, or a person from an art group might kidnap you, torture you, or kill you, and you might never find out why. It is only a coincidence that I'm standing here today. It's only a coincidence that you weren't in South Carolina when the storm hit and your house flooded, or you were in California when the wildfire at your house, or in San Bernardino when the shooting happened, or you were a Flint resident drinking from polluted water. Just as a slip of fate caused one child to be born in the US and another to be born in a Syrian war zone, it is a similar slip that brought me to this moment to share these realizations with you. This idea of coincidence, of fate, of a single moment or place making an incredible difference in a life, that idea that allows us to feel disconnected from the world around us. In a place so full of suffering, it can be so easy to ignore it and turn a blind eye to something that is not on our immediate radar by virtue of fateful moment. We got used to seeing the suffering. We came to a point where we watch the news and see the suffering, and yet we feel numb. And most of the time we tend to change the channel to watch something else, a football game maybe. Something died inside us, that moral obligation, because we feel that it is a world apart from our own. When I was in Syria helping people with the Syrian Red Crescent, I felt numb, indifferent. But I didn't stop, neither should you. We need to wake up. The suffering is tangible. It is here around us in every corner, and just because we don't feel deeply personal connection to someone or to a situation, we still have to awaken that moral obligation in us, simply because it can happen to us. At any moment, you can move from being the person watching the news to becoming the news. We need to be mindful, compassionate. We need to remind ourselves that our power as a human being lies in our ability to help each other. So for every time when you sit at your dinner table and feel frustrated simply because it's not your favorite dish, think about that Syrian kid in Turkey cleaning shoes so he can buy his sister's dinner. For every time you kiss your child before he goes to school in the morning, think about my friend Wael walking under falling bombs so he can reach his university. And for every time, and before you close your eyes and go to sleep, think about that kid from Detroit who lost his house in the fire. Every day, a new tragedy is added to humanity. We, the people, are in front of a great task. We can either sit back and watch it, or we can do our part to save it. I'm standing here before you to beg you to use your voice, to speak for those who cannot speak for their own. I ask you not to turn your back on them, to help them, to tell them that they are not alone and they are not forgotten. And we are going to create a better world for all of them. Last month, my friend Wael graduated from university. Despite the ongoing war and living under constant threats of death, Wael maintained his hope that he would receive his diploma. Volunteering all the while with the Syrian Red Crescent as an aid worker, Wael never stopped trying to plant seeds of hope and humanity. I reflect on this and go back to the memory of my own flower. I know that this flower has since dried, but I also know that we have many seeds that we can plant together. The Syrian playwright Saad al-Awannous once said, "We are condemned to hope, and what is happening now cannot be the end of history." We cannot acknowledge that suffering exists around us. We have an obligation, though, to bring hope to those who are most in need, because really, that is what we all need, hope. Thank you.